Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for watching and following along. Today we are going to get back to work on this game show. We're going to start on showing individual questions in the UI. Last time we got the basic structure working, so now we actually need to show a fun JavaScript question to the player. You ready to get started? Cool.
What the fuck is this?
Okay, so you might remember this from last time. Just wanted to kind of refresh my memory. This is essentially the state flow that we're going to be working with here. So when the user starts a game at game like 1, 2, 3, we need to show them some sort of a welcome screen. And before I was thinking that this was going to be like just one route that I would manage some sort of complex state on. I think I've changed my mind on that. So I think I'm going to have different routes for things right now. So if you go to game/the game ID, I still need to draw a welcome screen, and then we'll have a button there that says, okay, go, and we'll figure out, okay, what's the next question to go to, and we'll have like game 1, 2, 3 /Q/1 for question 1. And we need to show them like this pre-question screen of like, hey, here's what you could win. Do you want to keep going? Kind of thing. Then we'll go on to a show and a result. So what I want to do today is I want to get this simple route thing working so that we go through this flow. And then I'd like to populate some information into the game object and figure out what kind of thing am I going to be building that manages the questions so that I can show something on the screen here to feel like I'm making progress. That is my goal with the stream today. Maybe we get farther, maybe not. We'll see from there. So let's switch over to code and see what we're doing. I have my chat window open and hanging out over things here today, so hopefully I can be a little bit more responsive if anybody has questions about what's going on. So pop open my to-do list. Where I wanted to be here was that the game page can render a pre-question UI. I think I want to adjust this a little bit. Is that game route for a welcome startup screen, a game route for a pre-question UI, and a game route for showing a question, and a game route for showing a question result. That's what I think I want to do today. So let's spin up our app. I need to make sure I'm using the right version of Node. Cool. And then this isn't second nature to me yet. Okay, dev. Okay, npm run dev. Hopefully that means everything will just come up. Hey, there we go. Here's our list of games. We can start a new game for Todd. Am I ready? I am the welcome screen. Cool. And that screen exists at, just at the root of this game ID. So for one of the things that I think I want to do just for making myself not crazy, I don't think I want to use this crazy long UUID anymore. I think I just want an incrementing number, honestly, of maybe what I need to do or whatever the next version is. So I'm going to actually do that first, just because I think this GUID thing is going to like really bum me out. Change game ID to integer. Let's do that first. So where do we do that? When we are creating a game object, we just call UUID v4. And I think what I want to do instead is figure out what the next integer is. So in order to do that, I kind of need to figure out what the largest integer I have in the repository and call that. So I guess what I want to do is, it's kind of, maybe I don't want to set an ID at all and have string or undefined, I guess, and have the ID set in the repository when it is actually saved. So here we're going to have this. We're going to say if game.id is not defined, then we need to know that we have to get it. So let next, so maybe we'll just do game.id equals game repository.get next game ID. That seems like a good one. Private get next game ID returns a number. Oh, and game right now is expecting a number. That doesn't need to be. Let's just return a string. Cool. All right, so we need to get all games, which we already have the ability to do. So let games equal game repository.get all games. And we want to say games dot, we need to figure out what is, well, if we're going to be entering these things sequentially, we could just figure out like how big it is. I mean, it's not the most robust in the world, but like for our purposes, I think it'll be fine. So we could say return games.length. And we need to cast that to a string. So I guess we'll do that. Okay, so now if we go back to the beginning, let's just clear these and start a new game. And we'll start a game for Todd. And now it is 0, game 0. Cool. And if we create another one for Sam, we have game 1. Cool. All right, I love it. Let's get rid of that UUID thing. We don't need it anymore. So now the game ID is now an integer. Sweet. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to check that we have this game route for startup. I think that's already done, honestly. When we create a game in the game welcome screen, I guess. So we have this game startup. We're at the game whatever. Let's maybe call this game start instead, just for fun. Game start. Yeah, let's just change the imports for that all around. So now when we go here, this is interesting. Okay, so before I had this thing wrapped in a thing called the game board, and I was managing state. And I'm not sure that that makes sense anymore, because here I was just doing this. I think let's maybe bypass this for now, and we're gonna call a new folder called game start, and we'll just move that in here. It's not gonna, we're not gonna do a bunch of component things with that. We're just gonna manage it all with routes. I think I like that better. I don't know that I want to throw this thing away yet. Game start, game start, game start. Hopefully that all comes together and we can check to make sure that this all works. I am the start. Cool. All right, so now we have, when you go to this root, we go to the game start. So that was just some renames, so I think we're just going to keep on going without a commit here. All right, so now we're going to have a route once the player is starting the game. We're going to take them to some sort of pre-question UI where the goal is to show them like, hey, you're at such and such a level. This is the prizes that you've won. Here's the prizes that you could win. Do you want to keep going, kind of thing. So that, I would imagine we could do something like /game/GameID/questions/question ID. And maybe that's just what happens there at the root. And that's just question start. Kind of like that for symmetry. So we'll import a thing called question start from routes game question start is where I think that makes sense to put it. Question, no, let's just call it Q so that it mimics the directory structure. Q, I'm just going to put the file in the root here because I'm already getting irritated with all these index.whatever files. I'm just going to take that as a starting place. I want to create a new file there called start.tsx. Let's call it question start. I am the question start. Question start. Question start. Question start. Okay. So now we're going to start the game. We go, and that does nothing. We need to figure out where to go. Let's pull this guy out. Yeah. And let's rename him game start. Yep. Because I'm getting irritated with all these index files. So now we have game start. Okay. So game start, when it goes, we need to know where to take it. And so rather than it being an action with a button that we're going to change a state, we just need to know the URL to send them to. So that's just going to be somewhere. Start the next question. We just need to know what question they need to go to. And that's going to need to go in, like the URL will just need to be in the form of /game/GameID slash question slash next question ID. We need to figure out how do we get these things. So when we're starting up the game start component, we need to know what game we're working with. So just like we had in our board here, because we already kind of figured some of that stuff out. In our, yeah, we need a constructor like this. We're going to need some sort of like property. I don't think we have to define this thing over and over and over again, but like maybe we just call it URL properties for something, or URL route properties. That's, I mean, I don't know. That might be a terrible name, but let's just go with it for now. So sometimes it's kind of nice to keep both things here. So we'll call this a game ID is a string or undefined. Let's just be vague about it, I guess. And a question ID can be a string or undefined. I don't really love that. I don't care. Let's just keep going. So we're not going to do a thing here with the game controller just yet. We're going to just kind of be different about it. We're going to set this dot state is going to have a game that, where are we going to get the game from? The game repository, I suppose. Do we need to handle if it's not real? Let's create a route for errors, and let's create a 404.tsx, and this is just going to be for when the game or question or whatever doesn't exist. And (404) error. We can't start it with a number. Error 404 is a component that is really just going to render some stuff. We don't need any of this junk. We're just going to render div with h1 error 404. And I don't think we really need to be any more verbose than that. Let's make a route for it here at the end. Route path, somewhere we can redirect people to. Error 404. That was a little aside. Here we still need to figure out if we don't have things. So if there's no props.gameID, then we can route the user to /error/404. Replace false. Yeah, whatever. Okay. And now we can say let the game equals, at this point we know as a string, and if there's no game, we do the same thing. Cool. So now game equals game. Type game start state. As game. So now this can be game.id, or no, this dot state dot game.gameid.id. Cool. Now how do we know what the next question is? Well, that sounds like a job for our game object, maybe something that we're like keeping track of here. So what does that look like? We're going to have, I don't know how many questions, 10, 15, something like that. We're going to have 10 questions, and we don't necessarily know what the questions are until we've shown them. So we need like an array, I think, of here's the questions that we have shown the user, and what the result was, maybe. So what does that look like? So there's a public list of questions asked. Alex, it is broadcasting on Twitch and on there's a tweet where it's being broadcast directly into that with Periscope. It's in any of those 3 places. So what is this? Questions asked is going to be like some sort of like an array of objects, and these objects are going to contain something. It's going to contain like maybe like a question ID and a, I don't know, I don't know if we care about difficulty yet. Like what question did we show, and like the result, like is correct. Maybe. I think is correct as a boolean. Question ID is just going to be a string, I think. Okay, and this is just going to start as an empty array. Okay, so I think that's what we need. So to get the like next question, we don't necessarily know what question it is. So what I'm thinking is that like, okay, we're going to ask question 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But when we hit question 0, we need to talk to some sort of like question manager, or question service, or question controller, or something that says, hey, give me a question that's viable for question 0, like it's at that appropriate difficulty level that we haven't seen before. So maybe I do need like a difficulty that goes up with, like, if I'm answering, 10 questions, maybe there's 10 difficulty levels. Let's just kind of start with that concept, maybe. Difficulty, which is a number, I guess. And I needed that now because we need to know. I guess I don't need that right now. We need to know is like, what's the next question to ask, which I can get by just, hey, what's the length of this array? But maybe we should put like a little helper around it to make that a little bit more, a little bit easier to comprehend about. So get get next question index. How's that? Yeah. Return this dot question asked dot length. That's cool. So then that would be this dot state dot game dot get next question index. So now we have, I think this might actually be running now. Let's start a new game. Let's start a new game for Alex, since Alex is watching. Alex, we broke. Alex broke the system. Thanks, Alex. Is not a function. This dot state dot game dot get next question index is not a function. Why is it not? It must not be because I don't know why it would be actually. This dot state dot game. Oh, because we're when we save and bring back games, we're just pushing them to local storage and back. So obviously none of the functions come back with them. Right. I thought I was playing in a different world. This logic cannot be here. It needs to be somewhere else. Does the game have the array on it? This state game, it does have our array. So that's cool. So we really just need like that. We'll pull that off and we're going to go to the game controller and we'll make another little method here that it needs to take a game object and we are going to just take game.questionAsked.length and now we will let next question ID is going to be the game controller dot get next question, this dot state dot game, and now we can just plop that in there and hopefully that works better. Okay. I am the start. I am the start the next question. Question 0. I am the question start. Sweet. That's actually really good. We got that came together pretty easily. So now we are going to a pre-question UI. So now let's figure out, actually let's commit there. That seems like a good place to commit. So we have this question asks object. It's probably gonna get bigger, but like that seems fine for now. Our game controller got a little bit smarter there. We introduced a couple of routes, routes for the game start, routes for the question start, a 404, just so I have somewhere to go when I know that I'm in a bad state. I started renaming these things because I hate that. 404, game start. This is the start of our game. We check to make sure that things are good. You know, I should test that quick, just to make sure this does what I think it does. Oh, it did not. Oh, it did. It's just I didn't figure out the other one. So if I go to game, whatever, 404. Now why didn't it show the 404 message? That's interesting. Why didn't it show the 404 message? Route path, error 404. Cool. We're going to render this component /error/404. Maybe it's because there's numbers in it and things don't like working well with all numbers. So let's try calling it there. Hey, that was it. That was it. Error 404. Cool. So that works. Game start. I just commented this all out. I think I might need some of it again, but I'm not sure why yet. And I'm the question start. Okay. Pre-question routing. Okay. To do. So let's figure out. We're ready to show a question. So we are at in Alex's game. I am the start. We're ready to show question 0 to Alex. Cool. And when they say, yes, I want to answer this question, it's time to go on to do something else. So what is it that we want to do? We have question start. And there's a couple of different things that we could want to do. The purpose of this is to like show about this next question, prizes, etc. And what could the user do? The user could say, you know, show me the question, or they could be like, I'm sure there's a better name for this, but like, take my stuff and run. Like they're done. They just want to take whatever prizes they've won to date and be done. And I think that's it. I think those are the two paths that they could take. So if they are ready to do that, we are going to take a URL routes props. And then we would be able to know that we want to go to game slash this dot props dot game ID. Hey Adam. Slash question slash this dot props dot question ID slash what? Slash, I guess maybe show the question. Show me the question. And otherwise, where would I take them if they're like finishing? It's probably something like that. Of course, neither of those links are going to work right now. But that's okay. That goes nowhere, and that goes nowhere. But that's okay. We have the links. So now we need to define a couple more routes here. We're going to have a question ID / show, and we're going to have a thing called game ID / finish at some point. So we're going to have question show, which will be a question show, and we'll have a game finish at game finish. And let's just go ahead and create those both. So here, I'm just going to take a copy of game start and create game finish with it. Game finish. I don't know what this needs to do yet. Probably not as much as I think it does. Let's just say finishing the game. Okay, and then we have question start, and now we're going to have question show. Question show. Show me question. This dot props dot. Okay, so that maybe works. So if we take my stuff and run, we're finishing the game. If we show me the question, show me question 0. Cool. That was remarkably easy. Game for showing a question. I think that's actually done. All right. Loading a question for reals. So now that we're on this page, we need to load a question and decide what we want, how we want to manage that. So like we were talking about before, if we take a look at this game object, what I'm imagining here is that like I have this game and I need to say, hey, I want to load a question at index 0, the first question we're going to ask. And I need to ask some keeper of the questions to give me that back, to give me a question that is appropriate for that. So what I think that that's going to be is a question controller. But yeah. Question controller. That seems cool. Just like my other controller here, I'm just going to take you as a copy just to start. I don't know what I'm going to need yet. This is going to be a question controller. I don't know if this thing is going to manage a state of any kind yet. I actually have no idea what this is going to do yet. But it is going to be a singleton because I like them. Question controller. All right, I now have a question controller object. So when we land on this thing, we'll need to have something that says like get question, I guess, for lack of a better term, that's at some sort of like at game index, or at, I don't know, question index. Right? And it's going to need to return a thing that we need to define called a question. Export type question. So we have a thing, we can get it based on its question index. I really should rename this other thing because it's not a question ID, it's a question index. Question index. That broke a whole bunch of stuff though, but it's more semantically correct and it's going to keep me from screwing up later. IDX. Is that really it? Is that really all that broke? Question ID. I mean, yeah, in that case, it is a question ID that I need. Get next question index. Okay, so that all seemed to work. It does sound like a controller that might turn into a repository. It very well might. But you know what? We can change code. It's not hard. All right, so what does it mean to get a question? We need to get something from the index is a difficulty level, and a question will have like, I guess it'll have some text that we need to render, and it's going to have 4 options. And each option is going to have, I guess, text, which will be a string, and I guess there is a is correct, which is a Boolean. Does that work? No. I guess we'll just use by convention, there'll be 4 of those, but whatever. All right, so now we have this question. Where are we going to get this from? For the sake of argument right now, let's just return something and see what this looks like. Which is correct? Options. A. Let's make this optional. B. Let's make B correct. Okay, so this thing is returning a question of some kind. So here, let's just start at the beginning of our flow here. Start a new game. Let's start a game for Adam. Adam, start the question. Show me the next question. Show me question 0. Okay, that's what we wanted to do. So question 0, we want to render the question. I'm reasonably certain that I'm going to want a component that does that called question. No, question display, I guess. I don't want to overload the term question. And I want to pass it a variable. I want to pass it, I guess I want to pass it the question that I want it to render. Martin Thwaites just asked, at what point am I adding observability? And it's a good question. I don't know that I need it, but it's a good question. Anyway, Oh, that's a good question that we should put in the. At what point should you add observability to this app? A, right now. B, I should have already done it. C, right before we launch. Or D, never. Which one's correct? All right, so we're going to need a question to display, and then what I think this component's going to do is it's going to render, like, you know, the markup of what for things to display, and then on final answer will be kind of the callback for it, right? Because in do you want to be a millionaire? There's the questions, and then you pick which one, and then you have to ask, are you sure? Final answer, and then that'll be like a submit button or whatever that'll come back here, and we'll figure out what to do, where to route them, I guess, based on that. So yeah. So let's get a question, and I guess that'll come from the question controller dot get a question at this.props.question index. Oh, I suppose we need to do like that whole startup thing. Okay, so at this point, now we can guarantee that we have a thing. I suppose what we could do here is we could put the question in state. Ooh. That wanted a F. We have numbers in some places and strings in other places, and that's not cool. Let's just switch it all to strings. If and when we ever need something as a number, we'll cast it at that point. Okay. As string, sure, whatever. Let's not do that right now. In fact, let's not do any of that until I know I need it. Okay. On final answer, let's say we'll need to get something back from that, but I don't know what it is. I invented a whole lot of like indirection here, and I don't know what I gain by it. Am I ever going to show a question again somewhere else? Like this is the route where a question gets shown. Everywhere else, it's about other things. So maybe I am like just over engineering this. I think I might be over engineering this. I still need to get this question, but maybe I don't need to do that. So let's instead of creating a module or whatever, let's just create some stuff here. just so I know what things are here. And then div, maybe this will be an ordered list of answers. We could really just make this thing a form. That's kind of semantically correct. Question.text. And then for each answer, we're going to do an li. And in it, I think we'll do a input type radio. Name answer. We need like a label for it. And then we'll put the input in the label so that everything just kind of works together. And then we'll have some sort of button type submit final answer. All right, so how do we need to render those four things? That's with like a map of question.options.map. We're gonna say opt is going to return that, basically. And now it's going to be o.text. And how do we know which one did they answer? We need to put like something else on here. There needs to be an ID or something. Or an index. I'm torn on doing index because I'd like to be able to like randomize the question display at some point. I mean, I could go like super dumb and just basically like specify which thing is correct. I was kind of hoping I could keep that a little bit more hidden in case I want to push things elsewhere at some point in time, but I could always fix that later. The easiest thing to do would be to be like the value is O dot is correct, true. I think that it can be null. I really just want it to be like that, I think. Boolean is not, that's fine. We can send it to a string by doing that. There we go. So now I'll render and it'll be like false, 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 true for whichever one shows up. Let's see if this works. Hey, there it goes. A, B, C, D. If we look at what the value of things are, I see false for C. I see true for B. That's what I wanted. Okay, so that works just fine for now. that works just fine for now. So now on submit is we'll just do a this dot on submit dot bind this, and we'll just call it that. And our submit will be a event, and that's pretty cool. Now let's figure out, did they answer it correctly? And we'll just like log something out. Now we already built a form that does this with new game, and it was just this little guy right here. Ooh, yeah, gotta remember to prevent default too. On submit, we prevent the default. Let's get the form data. Let's call this form data as HTML form element. Cool. Form data. We're not creating a new game. We just need to know the form data dot get should have a thing called answer on it. And answer will be either the text true or false. So let is correct equals the form data dot answer is the string true. Yeah, I think that's it. So then let's just console log is correct. All right, so let's answer incorrectly. Open up my console. False. False, false. We can keep doing it. B, true. C, false. D, false. All right, we are now showing a question and then doing something with it. That is pretty cool. All right. In my to-do, I would say what we did is we're rendering a question, but we need to load questions from some sort of data structure. But what we're done with now is we now have a game route for showing a question, and we're rendering a question for real. Obviously, there's tons of CSS work that has to be done, but like that's the basics are there. So I'm going to close these two off my list, and let's commit. All right, so we now have this very simple question controller that knows how to get a question. App has a game finish and a game show, or a question show. We have a placeholder for this finish thing. Some changing of IDs to indexes, because it's going to represent not necessarily what the ID of the question is, but like at what index did we ask a question. Here's our question show that we've been working on. And our question start just has some better buttons on it. Cool. Rendering a real question. All right. So I think what the next thing I want to do is let's figure out how we're going to load up real questions. I have a few questions I like ready to go from a previous thing. We need to figure out where we want to store those. That's the next thing we're going to do, but we're going to take a 5-minute break and go take a piss. All right, I'm back. So let's load some questions from real data. So I have a thing that I should go and fetch out. Let's open up another VS Code window. In the JavaScript website, or the track.js website, buried in there is this old thing that I built for showing like a quiz, like a JavaScript quiz that we used to do at conferences with booths, where we'd have like a thing where people could, I don't know, play. And I have a ton of questions in there that I think would be cool. There we go, quiz. I think I have a it's all in one big JavaScript file somewhere. Quiz. Utility functions, random shuffle. Where are the questions? Oh, here's all the questions. Sweet. So we have an array of questions already, and we had an ID and some text and like some explanation text, which I like. Which ID is correct? I mean, this was actually more thought out than I thought it was. So that's pretty cool. Let's maybe put this into like a JSON file and just kind of use that. That sounds like a good idea. Where does that live? Probably just here in the root of source, I think. Questions.json. This is not going to be correct JSON though. No, it is not. Well, you know what? Who cares if it's JSON? It doesn't need to be JSON. Let's just put it as... Should we just put it in the question controller? Should it just like live right here? I mean, that's not the worst. If it just hangs out maybe here at the bottom. There's all of my questions. Okay, so let's kind of adjust what my definition of a question is to match this, or fix this to match my definition. So cool, I called them text on both sides. That's neat. IDs, looks like I have a unique ID for them, even though it's just like a random number, but that's okay. 16, 17. Ooh, that's just all kinds of random, isn't it? I think I might want to change those to a GUID, just so that I don't end up with any sort of accidental collisions there. And then I have, that's probably fine, 1, 2, 3, and then the correct ID. Okay, yeah, that's all right. Well, all right. After text. We don't define that. Sure, we might get rid of that if I don't end up using it, but okay. All right, so now this thing that we were building before obviously does not like that. So we need to return something real. So for the sake of getting something working, let's just return the first one. And let's just get the whole thing kind of working in the pipeline. We're not going to use this question JSON. We don't care about that. Okay, so now I think we're done with you. Now, obviously, what we were rendering in the question show does not work anymore because this does not look like what needs to happen. What needs to happen here is this is question.answers.map. And the value is just going to be, I guess it's going to be, let's call this answer dot ID. Yep, okay. I guess this is going to become the state of this thing now. Yeah, so what? Yep. Yes. I don't want to give it a type. Don't make me give it a type. Type question show state. It's going to be a question, which is a question. That make you happy? Good. Okay, so now when it's correct, it's going to be form data dot selected answer. Selected answer ID equals this dot state dot question dot correct ID. What are you yelling about? Reading question index. Oh, it's not this, it's just props. No, that's still not it. Oh, I obviously can't edit it there. Okay, there we go. Here's a real question. Pooped out length. What is it? Let's do a wrong answer. False. Let's do the right answer. True. All right, we are showing a real question. How about that? Yeah, I like it. What'd be nice to do is change the order that we display those in. You know what? I actually bet I figured out how to do that already. Let's go back to this game show a second. All right, so like I already had some random functions. Oh, shuffle. Sweet. All right. Shuffle an array. Yeah, so this way I can change the order of my things in when I show them. Let's make sure there's not like a more modern way to do this. Shuffle an array. JavaScript shuffle array. Hey, that looks a lot like what I did. An optimized version, shuffle array. Hey, I love it. Let's take that. Let's go back here. Let's make a utils folder. Let's create a file called shuffle array. Export. Let's just credit where we got this thing from. It's just going to rearrange the array in place. Is that okay? Let's slice it, yeah, and make a copy. Sweet. All right, so now if we go back to where we're showing this question, we should let answers equals shuffle array this.state.question.answers, and we will do that. And we're shuffling. Sweet. Cool. So now let's introduce the concept of difficulty. And it's going to take me a bit to actually go through this list of questions and like pick out what I want the questions to be and their difficulty. But like for the sake of I'll do that offline. That's not something anybody needs to watch. But we need to figure out how to do that. So we need to introduce this concept of difficulty and how it would work. So like, let's say I'm asking 10 questions. So I'd have indexes 0 through 9. I don't think I necessarily need to have unique questions at like a unique difficulty for every single thing. Some of those middle ones I could overlap. But like there's definitely like a super easy, an easy, a middle, and then like some super hard ones. So difficulties. So like I need something that's like trivial, because like the first questions in it are always like, what's 1 + 1? Like whatever. But then there's like some easy questions. Like if somebody's been doing JavaScript for a little while, they should be able to like grok that. There should be some moderate difficulty, like maybe like some smaller edge cases that are still kind of practical. There's like hard things. And then I don't know if it makes sense to have a like, should the last question just basically come down to like, can you randomly guess which thing it is? Because I've given you something so hard that you could not reason it out. I mean, I kind of think that. I kind of think that that's whatever. All right, but so when I ask for a question at a difficulty level, if I ask for 0, I mean I really only want a 0. Like, you do not give me anything else. If I ask for an easy, I prefer an easy, but like I guess I could have a trivial one returned. You know what? No, let's not. That is a bit of complication I don't need. Let's just take it as writ, is I need to give each of these things one of these 5 levels of difficulty. And I need to make sure I have enough questions in each of these that I can answer stuff. So if I, for instance, think I'm going to ask 10 questions in a game. Let's say I ask 10 questions in a game. That means I need 10 of each of these. Maybe I only need like 8 or so of like some of these. Or no, if I ask 10 questions, it means in one game, I need 1 to 2 of these, 1 to 2 of these, I mean, it's saying maybe I just do 2, 2, 2, 2, like that in one game. And then so if I end up with 10 players, so I have 45 minutes I need to fill. So if I have 10 players, that's little less than 5 minutes a game. So I don't even think I'll necessarily get through 10 players, but I might. And if that's the case, if I have 10 players, that means I need 100 questions. Oof. And how many of these do I have? How many times does the text after text appear? $41 times. And one of those is bunked. So I only have 40 questions. So I'd have to like more than double the number of questions I've written. So I I mean, that's fine. I can make variants. Yeah, so that's fine. Okay, so we'll do 100 questions. I need 100 questions, and that means I will need 10 times math. Okay. Here's how many questions I need for one game. I'm playing 10 games. Does that mean I really need 20 trivial questions? I guess it does. Yeah, that's how many questions I need to come up with. Oof, that's going to be some work. Okay, let's figure out how I'm going to do that. I think this is going to be a matter of, for the sake of argument, I think I'm just going to slap this on a question. I think I'm just going to call a difficulty of, trivial. I don't think this one's a trivial one, but like difficulty trivial. And then when you ask this, being that I almost want a map of like index to difficulty. So like at index 0, I want it to be difficulty 0. At index 1, I want it to be difficulty 0. At index 2, index to difficulty. Yeah, that's all right. So that's basically what I want. I could do this with like an equation that like splits it in half and stuff, but I think that's actually going to be harder to understand later because it doesn't balance out just right. Because there's 3 of those. And then the last one is difficulty 4. So yeah, right here, const index to difficulty. And then we're going to add difficulty is what, 0 through 4? How do you do that with TypeScript? TypeScript type is one of zero, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Yeah, there we go. That works. For now, let's make it optional, just so like this whole thing isn't yelling at me. And let's figure out, all right, so we have one here that is a difficulty of 0. So now let's say, okay, let difficulty equals index to difficulty, and we just need to plug in what this thing is. Yeah. What's the problem? Because of the expression can't be used. Oh, there we go. Okay. Question index, which is a string, and returns a number. All right, cool. Cool, 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 cool. All right, so now we can say, I want something in questions. I want you to find something for me where q.difficulty matches difficulty. And let's return that. And right now there should be only one thing that returns. Is not assignable. Okay. Let question. If question is not null, return question. Otherwise, throw new error. No questions found. All right, so there should be only one thing that gets returned. It should be this guy. If we instead move the difficulty rating to the second guy, yep, all right, so now that's the one that gets returned. All right, so now we are able to do difficulties. So I like that. The next thing we need to do, I think we're going to commit, but like the next thing we need to do is we make sure we don't show the questions more than once. So like once we've shown the question up on the screen, obviously everybody in the audience has seen it. And so the next contestant shouldn't get that same question again. So now we need to remember which questions we have shown in this browser. For now, let's take this thing that we've changed here. We've kind of changed around questions a little bit to add real question data. In our to-do, I need to tag questions with difficulties, Todd only, and add up to 100 questions, Todd only. And we built a little shuffler. All right, loading real questions. Okay, happy with that. Things are going good. Let's don't show questions more than once. So here in our question controller, we need to kind of keep track of what has been shown. So when we return a question here from getQuestion, we kind of need to tag. We need like to mark it somehow. And that needs to like persist between if I accidentally like refresh the page. So we need to put something in local storage. Once a question has been returned from here, it should not be shown again. So guess we could just maybe make some private methods here. Mark question as shown. And private has question been shown? I'm not sure about that one yet. Okay. So when we get a question has an ID, so that's cool. So we could do, I kind of want to like, when we mark a question, we need to save it into local storage. We need to save something. And we're already putting some things in local storage. We're storing these game things. So I guess what we need to do is, there's probably another key in here, a questions shown key. So local storage, we need to get that out first. Local storage dot get item, and the item is going to be called questions shown, I guess. And if that doesn't come out, then we'll just JSON.parse this thing out. Let questions shown equal that. So now we should get an array kind of regardless back out of this guy. And then naming things is the hardest part. Questions shown dot push. We're going to push on this question ID, and then we need to save it again. So local storage dot set item. We should put this in a constant somewhere so that, no, I don't care. I don't care. We're going to set item question shown, and we are going to say JSON.stringify questions shown. All right, so now we have the ability to like save that out. So when we get something, before we return it, we should mark question as shown the question. But we also need to make sure that we don't return the same thing twice. So that's where we need to probably tag like a couple of different things with difficulty. Let's tag you and you and you, all with difficulty 0. We have 3 questions with difficulty 0. So when we're looking for them, look at that, question shown. Oh, the problem is we're just pushing it again and again, and because we're not filtering it out. But the other thing is that we can't necessarily filter out, because like this is the question we are showing for this quiz. Like it's almost like it's not just we've shown it, but we've shown it for this person. So we can show it again for that person at that index, but we can't. That's hard to think about. Let's draw a picture. Let's draw some pictures. Okay. All right, let's figure this out. Let's open a pencil here and figure this out. All right, so we have a collection of questions. We have a collection of questions. And we have a game object. And when the game object says like, hey, you know, I give me question 0. Give me a question for 0. This thing needs to look and find which of these things are for difficulty 0, and then return one. And when it returns one, it says, hey, you know, this one was used. Oh, that's how I do it. I need to say that, you know, game 1, 2, 3. I need to say the game 1, 2, 3 use this for question 0. And so when he's asking, he should ask and say, hey, I'm game 1, 2, 3. I want question 0. Give that to me. And then this thing should basically have an exclusion function or something like that, where it says, okay, I have returned this once to game 1, 2, 3 on position 0. If I get that same request again, cool, not a problem. If I get anything else, I should not return that question. Okay, that works. Let's go back to my code. Let's make our request correctly now. So when we're showing a question, we need to ask for props.gameID as a string and props question ID as a string. They both need to be there. Game ID string. All right, then we calculate the difficulty. So right now we're just finding anything based on the difficulty, and we need to mark it. So how are we going to mark this thing? It's more than just, at this point we have like a game. We have a question ID, a game ID, and an index. And we need to make like a combined key. Or no, we still need to have like this question was shown, but what was it shown for? Okay, cool. So let's instead, we're going to need to destroy this. Instead, questions shown is going to be a, let's create another type here, a private type. A type is going to be a, what's this thing called? A question, question used record. I don't know if that's a good name. And it's going to have a question ID, which is a string. And it's going to have a game ID, which is a string. And it's going to have a question index, which is a string. Sure. Okay. So now get, Adam, you're right. This is turning into a repository, but I think I want to leave the two concepts just kind of squished together. I'm going to say get usage records is going to return a keyed index of question ID, which is a string, is going to return a usage record. Record. Yeah. So now we're going to build a hash map of that. Okay, so local storage.get item, question, I don't know, usage records. Or that. Let okay. That's a, yeah, let's define it there. Save usage records, usage records, usage records, void. Okay, now we have our little thing. So then when we mark our question as shown, that's a update question usage. Let's not put it in a different function. Let's just figure out what this looks like. So we have this question. We need to say let usage records equals this dot get usage records, and if usage records contains this question dot ID and this is really about checking it. Ugh. I really need to get the usage records sooner because I need to check this like as I'm getting things. So if usage records has this game ID question index combo, return that. Right? That's the first way. Like, this has been asked for before. It's already in our usage record. Like, here, this is the same question. You're just getting the same question again. Otherwise, we need to find a question that that hasn't been used. Else find a question not used. Oh, not, okay, that's a different way of approaching this. I think I could do that. All right, so I think maybe this is the wrong way to organize this data. I don't think sometimes I'm coming at it in different ways. So let's change this object is this is just an array, and it's an array of objects, and those objects are question ID string. It is probably slightly slower than what I could have been doing otherwise, but I don't think performance is going to be a concern here. So that shouldn't matter. This is an array by default now. And that's what a usage record looks like. So let existing usage equals, we are going to look at usage records, and we are going to look for something where the usage record.gameID is the same thing as gameID, and the usage record.questionID is the same thing as question index, IDX. I should call this IDX. Question index, question index. Okay, so if there is existing usage, then we're going to return that question. So why isn't that figuring it out? It's possibly undefined. It's not undefined. Okay, yeah, now we can just return it as undefined. We'll just spit it out undefined. We'll let the front end handle it if there is no question. Okay, so otherwise, we have to return a question that has not been used. So what we should kind of do is create an object here that's not like this questions. This is like the raw questions. We need to have like the questions that are like, we'll load them up once and make sure that we're using the right ones. So okay, private const remaining questions is a question array starting with empty. Yeah, fine. And we're going to create a constructor. And in the constructor, we are going to get usage records from any previous thing. And we are going to say questions, which we should rename that to like questions raw or something like that. questions dot find dot what? What do we want to do? No, I don't want sum. I want filter. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to filter the questions down to only give me the questions where only give me the questions where usage records dot sum usage record dot question ID where every usage record doesn't contain So that builds up an object right at the beginning of remaining questions for us to use. But we need to make sure we keep it up to date. This is all right. So else find a question that has not been used. That's just like this, where we will return remaining questions dot find something that matches your difficulty level. I guess we need to keep it and tag it somehow. Yeah. I don't care about that. So we have a question, and if there is a question, like if we were able to find one in the remaining questions, then what? Then what? This is not... That's not a constant. If there was a question, now we need to say usage records dot push a new one that is question ID, game ID, and question index. I suppose we could use the abbreviated version there. And we need to save usage records. And we need to remove it from remaining questions. which is about remove object in array. I suppose we could just delete it. I need to find the index of it. Okay. This dot remaining questions dot index of the question. This dot remaining questions dot splice move it there and delete one. Return question. Whew, that's kind of nasty. That is nasty. Okay. So now here, this can be undefined if there's no question, then why isn't questions defined yet? Oh, we just haven't gotten to it. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, collect my thoughts, take a walk around, and then we're gonna get back to this. Okay, we're back. I think I figured out what is wrong. I think it's just an ordering thing. Just to get this working, I'm going to put questions up here at the top of the file, or at least above the definition of the class. I think that's going to be what we need to get this guy going. Ooh. Things are not happy. Not happy. So we have a game ID, we have a question index. Let's go into that. Fuck. All right, so we passed in everything we need. We're going to get a difficulty rating. We got no usage records out, so cool. There should be nothing there. We bypass out. Remaining questions didn't get created. Fuck. Okay. So I think I gotta think about this again. This giant thing of questions, let's move this somewhere else and have this thing come in from somewhere. Let's create a file called, I guess we'll just put it here in questions. I don't know if I love this, but let's define the type at the top here. Export type question, and then we are going to export questions. Okay, that is going to need to bring in an import, and that is going to need to bring in an import. And let's think about this remaining questions thing. If we save that, oop. Remaining questions is still 0. And remaining questions is 0 because Questions is not defined. All right, I don't think this thing likes doing stuff in this constructor. So let's not do it that way. So let's just calculate what are the, let's just do it right here. What are the remaining questions? So give me every question that I can. So if I take questions dot, I have this list of questions. I have a list of usage records that don't match. Let used questions equal usage records dot map. Usage record will become usage record dot question ID. And then I have questions dot filter to where the question dot ID to our used questions dot find use question dot ID dot used question IDs. Question ID. This is a used question ID is a used question ID. Find any does not equal question.id. Let remaining questions. Now we don't have to update that. Okay, so we grab all of the usage records for this question ID. Which, I mean, shouldn't be a lot of them. Should only be one, if there is one. In fact, there should only be one. So find, no, I'm just grabbing all the IDs. So here's a list of all the IDs who've been used. And then I take my questions and I filter the questions. They say, hey, if it exists in filter so that we only include things where you can't find it in used question IDs, and then find me one that matches the difficulty level. If it remains, we want to push a usage record and return it. I think we got it now. I think we got it. Let's take off all these breakpoints. All right, Alex's game 3, start a new question, show me the question, did not work because of what? Because, let's go into that. Get question. All right. Difficulty, usage records. There's no existing usage records, so we don't have to do anything of that. Use question IDs. There's nothing there. So we have our array of questions. Should be huge. Questions is not defined. I don't understand. I do not understand. Debugging sucks. All right, we have questions. Questions exist. I think we're getting closer. All right, if we just do this. Do I have my logic backwards? Nope. Oh, you know what? This is always returning false. I need this to return... filter my list of questions so that my used questions sum yeah, I think I had stuff backwards. Okay. So I'm going to questions, and I'm going to say, hey, filter out to only include only include things if used question record IDs dot sum, I hate this word, sum, whether a specific function returns true for any element, so any, if any of the used question IDs are this one, used question ID is this one, and it will return a Boolean. So if any, sum is the same as any, if any of them are in this list, if any of them are in the list, okay, and I want to invert this. So find me any questions that are already in the used question list, and if the current one is one of those, don't include it. Ugh, that's nasty. There we go. All right, so I have now shown this question in game 3. So if this is working correctly, I should be able to go to my application here, and there should be a usage record saying, okay, question ID 1 was used at question index 0 in game 3. So if I go back to my games and pick out Sam's game, which is not good, let's start a new game, which is going to be Pam's game. Start the next question, take me to the question. It's a different question. Okay, cool. And then if we start yet another game for Clam, that is yet another question. And now we have 3 things, and as we refresh, we keep getting the same one. That should be all of them that I've tagged, so if I try and do another one for Sham and start one more, it now blows up because I used all of them. Okay, so that's interesting. There's a case where I feel like this could happen in the real world. And so I want to have an error case for this. Maybe, in fact, what I should do is I should have a way of just showing what the error message is. So if there's no question, we didn't get a question out of the controller, we want to say, hey, go to this route, that this route is /error/ hey, maybe it's a message that I want to send, and URL and code URI component. I don't think I like this whole thing. I'm just gonna be like, hey, return. Let's just, alert. To do could not get a question. Hey, all right, I don't mind that. Okay, I think, all right, so we are not showing questions more than once. That's cool. And should we try and do one more? Like a correct result, whatever? I think that might be kind of cool. Let's finish this thing up. So, oh, I don't like that I did this. Let's go back to where you lived here. Cool. All right, so let's commit these. So we figured out usage and how to, like, a better error message around it. That's it. Don't double show questions. Okay, the last thing I want to do together with you on our stream today is let us figure out how to go to the game result page, or a question result. So the user answers one of the questions, and we need to show what actually happened there. So in our app, we need probably another path here. So in a question result. That obviously doesn't exist. Okay. Question result state. We'll probably also want our question object in it. That's fine. This actually should be fine because we'll get the same question back. What we needed to know is, what did the user answer it? So that is what we need to figure out here in show. When we are processing this submit, we need to figure out what to do with this is correct. I think that might be what we want to put back on the game. So yeah, all right, questions asked. We just need to start populating this array, I think. I think there's a few things we might want to do. Question index probably as well. Question index, the question ID that was asked, and whether or not it was correct. I think that is probably sufficient. So do we have the game? We do not have the game. Let's get the game. Let's make the game part of, like, hydrating up our state here. Let game equals what? Game repository dot get game props dot game ID. As string. All right, we just have the game. Now in question show, so now here we can say, hey, on submit, game dot this dot state dot game dot questions asked dot push. What are we pushing? Question ID, question index is correct. The question ID is going to be this.state.question.id. This dot props dot question index. Let's put that first. And is correct is going to be this guy. I don't like that. I don't like that I have to always do that. Let's get rid of that. All right, and then we can set in game repository dot save game this dot state dot game. Cool. And now that game should be saved. Okay, what did we blow up? Oh, can't put a semicolon there. Cool. So now when we have our question result, we can load some stuff up, I think. So we'll load the question still. And we'll, just like there, we'll load the game. Okay, so for now, let's go here into our render result and just put something, h1 result, so we know we've landed here. And then in our question show, here when we're done, we just need to, what? Route the user over to /game/ game dot All right, so we will answer it and say final answer, and we landed on the result. Cool. We are in game 5. So what did that tell us? We have a question asked. And we asked question 2 on that, and it is correct, false. So cool. So now on our question result page, we could say something like right or wrong. Let result equals this.state.game.questions asked at the index of this.props.question index. Oh shit, it's I need to cast that. Parse, fine. Parse int. Okay. Not finding it. What do we get if we... Ooh, I think we screwed up. I think we screwed up. Yep. We are sending in the question ID where we wanted the question index. Yeah. This.props.question index. And there we have a result. Cool, wrong, awesome. The user would be done. We should also maybe not let them go back or lock that out. Let's add that as a to-do. Prevent user from answering question again. All right, but I think we figured that out. Yeah, it's 4:11. We've been streaming for quite some time, so let's wrap this up. We added the question index here. We added a question result page, a bunch of stuff around rendering the correct or incorrect answer, and just some minor stuff there. Show the question result. Great. Well, I think we got a lot done today. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Maybe this evening I will do these things around tagging questions and such. And what we'll come back with probably tomorrow to maybe start adding in some things around the scoreboard. Figuring out like how does the user climb up the scoreboard? How do we assemble the things that they have won? That sort of thing. So tune in next time for episode 4 of the scoreboard. See you later.